This is one of those stories I never like to talk about because I always see the underpinning of what is occurring. And it's, tragic that we lose our bright and shining stars to this beast. So rest in peace to DMX. By now, everyone has heard the news. But this story was interesting, just like Whitney, just like Michael, and several others, where there's always this subtlety and hint of suspiciousness. Okay, so when the story first broke, it broke on a very occultic, ritualistic day. And that Friday, he was actually pronounced dead, and then they retracted it. But if you were on social media, you would have recognized that Swiss Beats had a picture up of him and DMX. And then at some point, he took it down once it was announced that DMX had an overdose. He took the picture down and put up the sunset. And right away, everyone was calling it. DMX had passed. And all of the fans were actually going on Swiss Beats' account and accusing him of having something to do with the cover up. Because, we all think now, like, anytime these things happen, it's never just like a regular passing. There's always something else going on. And I mean, truthfully, there's a lot of clues here that leads one to believe that something has occurred that is a little bit sinister. From the time I saw this album cover, I knew it was over for him. I knew it was a matter of time because of his tumultuous background that he's openly spoken about, growing up with his mom and being introduced to drugs early on by a supposed mentor, which the word on the street is that DMX was actually groomed, if you know what that means. I don't want to spell it out. I don't want people upset at me, but that is the word on the street, and that is the real reason why he always had that monkey on his back or the devil on his back. He talked a lot about the devil on his back in his music. Some of his lyrics were definitely very controversial, talking about, topics that are not very PC that's the most generous way I can put it. I'm going to leave the lyrics here so you can see it for yourself. But yeah, this was goat's blood. And there's no reason to be bathing in goat's blood. I don't know why the director felt that it wouldn't convey the same significance if it was just red dye. And it is reported that DMX himself did not want to do this cover like this with the goat's blood. So I believe that there was some sort of oath going on here that he didn't want to comply with, but he had no choice because we know once you sign those contracts, that's it. And they're going to keep at it until you are dead and gone. On this cover, you can see they posed him so that it appears that he has the horns coming up out of his head. And from the time that they were announced that he overdosed on that particular day, it has significance to the lyrics, to his story. All of it just points to the fact that this man was under attack by the evil ones. And he was a very spiritual man, and it probably was always at odds with him. And I know from working in the mental health field, one of the ways that people choose to cope with lots of different types of abuse that are traumatic is with drug use. His family or friends were reporting that he actually received the shot that they are trying to mandate, and that is actually what broke his body down, not an overdose as was initially reported. We probably never know the truth, just like all of our bright stars. Lots of things happen to them. They can't talk about it. They are traumatized and they try to deal with it the best way they can, but oftentimes they do run to drugs and alcohol to forget the things that occurred to them. And then when they are no longer of use, something like this happens, and now you're trending number 2 on iTunes. He was $1 million negative in the hole. This man was a very successful hip-hop artist, and at the time of his death, he had nothing to show for it. It's so sad, y'all. When he was on that drinking show with Nori asked him, like, what was the most terrible thing or, the worst thing you ever seen in show business. and X wouldn't answer him. And he kind of covered his mouth in that classic don't tell symbolism that all of the stars seem to do. And so that was a pivotal symbol that was thrown out right there. They do a lot of these things out in the open because they know that we're not paying attention and we're not reading the signs and symbols. And they probably were sending a signal to him at that point. He shouldn't have been on that show unless he was drinking water. I'm not sure why anyone thought this was a good show. I'm not sure why when he was in the studio anyone thought that, they should have been in the studio with alleged, drinks and smokes and things of that nature. So it almost seems as if this interview was a sign pointing to the fact that it would soon be time for us to say goodbye, to one of the most pivotal rappers that came out of this movement from New York. The details surrounding his passing just grew more morbid and curious each day that passed by, because originally they told us he passed, and they said no, he's on life support. Then the lawyer came out and said he passed, and then he retracted the statement, and then they're saying no, he's on life support, but the children need to get there, the family needs to get there to say goodbye. And then all of these stars started coming out posting farewell, rest in peace, and then they retracted their stories. If this doesn't scream of that word that starts with the R that I don't want to say because they keep taking my videos down. But you know what I'm saying. They do this stuff on particular days. It's no coincidence that the Duke over there died recently, today. And then DMX was called the Earl of Hip Hop. So there's a tie-in there. Lots of peculiar things about this case. So not only did we see these allegedly suspicious, untimely death tributes from different stars, then they all retracted them just for a few days later for everyone to say officially, yes, he has passed on. And now everyone's playing his music. Everyone's giving him accolades. Everyone has pictures of him. And people are speaking out. Who was helping him? Who got him help? A lot of times when people deal with certain traumas in their life, this is sometimes the way life plays out. But one thing I do know, I always said this, especially when I saw like Whitney and Michael, that sometimes they're worth more dead. And that's a cold, hard fact. Because now people are going to buy the music because we remember so many good times. Like, DMX was fine. We thought he was fine growing up. And he come out in them little overalls and boots, y'all, and be barking at us and stuff. And he was a good-looking, dark-skinned man. He was chocolate, and we like chocolate and bald heads, and he was rough. And he was a sex symbol, I would say, for us back then. And I feel like as he began to go through these struggles and he fell out of favor and got into trouble with the law and he lost some of his luster, I feel like probably the handlers and the gatekeepers did everything in their power to keep him on something that would constantly disrupt his life, if you understand what I'm saying, reading between the lines there. Okay? So that's another tragic death in our community, another loss. It's just so unfortunate. I just keep saying that because it's like they almost don't get to live a decent life. They almost don't get to just retire in obscurity and just live and be happy. It's almost like they, whatever contract they sign, it almost always lead to death or violent death or poverty. Anyway, in his lyrics from Let Me Fly, there is a line where he says, I sold my soul to the devil and the price was cheap. And it's cold on his level because it's twice as deep. But you don't hear me. Ignorance is bliss, and so on. Sometimes it's better to be thought dumb. Shall I go on? So, very interesting lyrics. So much meaning behind them. You could definitely decipher them for days. So, I don't know. I am going to leave you guys actually with some images of DMX from all of his fans that are paying tribute to him. And, rise in honor to DMX.